I've been fascinated by the night sky since I was a little child. The magnificent landscape of distant stars raised millions of questions in my mind about that unreachable world and still does. However, when I realized that my consciousness about the world I'm living in is a result of the billions of interactions between neurons in my brain, I had a new passion for another stunning universe within me, the human mind. Call it magic, illusion, superpowers, sorcery. At the end of the day, all that happens is you perceiving the world in a different way. One that I choose, formulate and force on people as a magician. Many people would argue that there is what some call black magic, one that involves demons, spirits and interacts with some supernatural worlds. Here, all we're gonna talk about is the natural world. So magic in this natural material world we live in and we know about is basically fooling the human mind by relying on gaps in its perception and by predicting its vulnerabilities. As the great magician and doctoral student in cognitive psychology Anthony Barnhart says, performing magic makes you keenly aware of how fallible people's perceptions are. During a magic trick, so much of what you think you're perceiving, you're actually misperceiving. In this series of videos, I'll be exploring our minds and how they perceive the world around us. I'll try to dig into the psychology of magic. Our perception is heavily influenced, even biased most of the time, by our expectations, experiences, moods, and even cultural norms. It's true that we get information about the world with our senses, but they mean little without our brain's ability to organize and translate that data into meaningful perceptions. There is a strong link between biology and psychology. Neurotransmitters, hormones and brain's functions interlay on a very deep level with our movements, memories and even personality. What our brains do is what our minds are. Our consciousness, our behaviors, our decisions, our memories, ourselves. So in order to understand the behavior of the human mind, we gotta start by understanding the human brain. In contrast to what most people think about using just 10 or 20% of our brains, the MRI actually shows that almost every region of the brain lights up during even simple tasks like walking. The brain you have is very developed compared to one of our ancestors. Less complex animals have simple brains designed for basic functioning and survival, like rest, breathe, eat, while more complex animals, like many mammals, have brains that feel, remember, reason, and predict. The new brain systems are built upon older brain systems. Thus, the first part of our brain is called the old brain or the brainstem, and it's composed of the medulla that's responsible for automatic old brain's functions like breathing, and the pons that help coordinate the movement, and the thalamus, which takes in sensory information of sight, taste, touch and hearing. And in the back there is the cerebellum, which is responsible for non-verbal learning, memory, perception of time and modulation of motions. This is basically where the brain stops for reptiles. Separating the old brain from the new one, there's the limbic system, which consists of three parts. The amygdala, that's responsible for memory consolidation and emotions, the hypothalamus, which regulates hormones and is responsible for pleasure and reward, and the hippocampus, which is central to learning and memory. Then there is the new higher cerebral areas, two hemispheres of gray matter connected by what we call corpus callosum, make up 85% of our brain's weight and oversee our ability to think, speak and perceive. Covering these two hemispheres, there's the cerebral cortex, which is a thin layer of over 20 billion interconnected neurons. And let's not forget about the billions of glial cells that surround, insulate and nourish the cerebral neurons. The cerebral cortexes left and right are subdivided into four lobes that are separated by fissures. First, the frontal lobes, involved in speaking, planning, judging, abstract thinking, and aspects of personality. The parietal lobes, where the sense of touch and body position get processed. The occipital lobes, that receive information related to sight, and finally, the temporal lobes, that process sound and speech comprehension. The rest of the gray matter prevails throughout the four lobes and is made up of association areas that are related to higher functions like remembering and thinking. One last thing to keep in mind is that a lesion in a specific part of the brain may destroy one's ability to recognize faces or to remember events that happened just a few minutes earlier. Traumatic memories or overactive hormones can profoundly affect our behaviors and emotions. In other words, psychology and biology are fundamentally intertwined. And that's exactly why we're starting this journey into the human mind with an overview of the brain and its biology. I'm pretty sure now that it's gonna be way easier for us to explore the human mind and to answer questions about how it perceives the world and how it can be deceived.